from across state lines, starring Joaquin and Jason Ellis. Welcome to the Potatocast!
Hello there, folks. Hope you're all having a fine evening. Thank you for tuning into the broadcast here tonight. I am, of course, Jason Ellis, joined by my co-host,
Joaquin.
If you're playing backseat bingo with your sweets, knock it off and turn your attention here. It's a fine evening in sunny Florida.
And it's a drifty night here in Massachusetts.
And we've got a nifty show for you here tonight now, don't we?
We certainly do, so make sure you got your detective caps on because we're going to be digging around a new telecast that's been taking the world by storm, WandaVision.
Oh my god. Oh. Are we out?
Jason, hurry, crack that Fiji open, quick.
Before she sucks us back in, we gotta do this episode. That's some good Fiji. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on our 14th episode of the Potatocast. If you hadn't already heard, I am of course Jason Ellis, your host, joined by my co-host,
Joaquin Matthews.
And if you hadn't guessed it already, we are talking about the show taking the world by storm, WandaVision.
Mm-hmm. WandaVision.
It's currently there are 8 of the 9 episodes out. We're still 1 to go, but I think I wanted to at least get an episode before that last episode, before everything's revealed, because I enjoy the speculation.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that there won't be a cliffhanger at the end of that of the last episode, because it's leading into Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange, a bunch of other stuff. Mm-hmm. But they might kind of close the book a little bit. But I like the speculation of not really knowing what's going on. So we wanted to get an episode in before that final episode, and we are here. And obviously we haven't talked about the show at all before on the podcast. So we have 8 episodes that we haven't discussed. So we're going over all 8. Mm-hmm. So, to varying degrees. The earlier episodes, probably not as much as the most recent. But I wrote down some spark notes, kind of synopsises.
Yep, one of those is right.
Yeah, one of those is right. Of each episode, so it will not be like the Halloween episode with the summaries of those movies. Right. I promise you, it will not be as long-winded and drawn out as that.
Real quick, Jason and Jason's gonna handle it. So none of my rattling on.
Well, I know in that Halloween episode, I was struggling when doing some of those summaries. There was a lot of, even in the actual episode, when you listen to it, it's drawn out. You don't know how many uhs and ums I cut out of those. But yeah, no. So we're gonna go over it. We're gonna go through everything leading up to where we are now with episode 8. But before we break down, kind of the episodes by themselves, Joaquin, what have been your general kind of thoughts on the show? Have you been liking it? Is it, exceeding your expectations? Is it worse than you thought it was going to be? Is it going how you were expecting it, story-wise, without necessarily giving plot points, because we're going to get into those later on. Mm-hmm. But just in general, what are your thoughts and feelings on the show?
Okay, so without getting too into it, because some of my issues with the show are kind of with the later episodes, so we'll discuss that when we get to that. But I think it kind of took me by surprise. I was going to watch it anyways, but I was going to wait for the whole thing to be over. So, but then I saw people posting stuff on Twitter, and it was okay, there's no way I'm going to get through this without some sort of spoilers. So when I started watching it, I thought this is kind of a slow start, but I really liked the premise. I didn't think it was going to be this interesting. I thought it was going to be kind of just a throwaway, essentially. I assumed they didn't want to do too much story details to take away if you didn't watch this. But no, I was really surprised. I really liked the premise of how they're emulating all these old sitcoms, and to me that's interesting. I like the style of the show a lot. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, I was kind of similar, where I was excited for it just because it's more MCU content. We haven't gotten a lot of it, because of COVID and stuff. We were supposed to already have, Black Widow. I think there was also another one that was supposed to already have been out. I forget if it's Eternals or something else that was supposed to be out by now. got delayed because of COVID. So yeah, I was excited for it, but I was kind of in a similar boat to you where I wasn't like super jazzed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't exactly sure what to expect from the trailers. You know, I kind of had some notions about what I thought the show was going to be about, but really before the show, like Wanda and Vision, while you know I thought they were good characters and stuff, to a certain degree they were somewhat supplementary characters in the sense that, you know, they've always been in like the larger team up movies. They never had any content before about them, so you know, there was I don't know, there wasn't a whole lot of, I guess, hype for me going into this. And as the show has progressed, I'm loving it. And yeah, as each episode has progressed, I thought the show has just gotten better and better. I don't necessarily think that each episode was better than the last, but just with everything being revealed, you know, a bit more and more, and more stuff being introduced, yeah, it's definitely caught me by surprise, I guess, in that sense, where, and especially like you look at what it could kind of hold for the greater MCU, like, you know, obviously we knew it was going into Doctor Strange, but it seems like it's going to affect the greater MCU quite a bit. And yeah, they haven't finished yet. Right. But if they stick this landing, it could be in like my top 5 like MCU properties.
Really?
Slash the characters. Like I've really fallen in love with Wanda and Vision as characters in this movie, and to the point where
this movie,
or this almost a movie. It's like a 6-hour movie if you put it all together. Right. But in this show, and it makes like I watched some clips of them from like the past movies, like in Infinity War and like Civil War and stuff, and it gives me a whole new perspective on like the dynamic between the two of them. And it makes me excited because I recently kind of started rewatching the MCU movies. I haven't gone too far. I've watched like Iron Man 1, 2, and then Thor. But it makes me excited to get to the movies where they are in it and they're interacting with each other. I haven't watched like Age of Ultron in forever. I haven't watched like Civil War in full in like forever. So I'm really excited to get back to those. And now that we have this new kind of aspect with Wanda and Vision. And especially with some certain stuff that got revealed in this most recent episode, but again, we'll get to that later on. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And so I guess with that, our general thoughts, we can kind of move on to kind of going back through each episode and kind of giving our thoughts. So again, I have quick little kind of spark notes of each episode, and again, there's more and more notes as each episode progresses because there's more and more stuff that gets revealed or that's important. And yeah, so we'll try to be kind of brief with the earlier episodes, and in the later episodes we'll kind of get into more detail. But starting off, do you think I should do episode 1 and 2 together because they came out the same day?
Yeah, and they're pretty much like the same kind of style anyway. So
right, okay. Well, so the first episode, it was really just an introduction to the characters and just the general world. And also, spoilers.
Oh, yeah. If you haven't seen anything.
Yeah, and I'm going over story points, but for the most part, like, you should have seen the show by now. So if there's anything that I miss over or whatever, you know, you should have seen the show by now. But yeah, so the first episode, it's a 50s style sitcom. We're introduced to Wanda and Vision as they move into Westview as a newlywed couple. We're introduced to their neighbor Agnes, who pops up throughout this episode to help Wanda as well as other episodes. Vision goes to work. In this episode, he's having dinner with his boss. Kind of like this episode has a very classic kind of story trope of, you know, the couple both forget their anniversary, but it turns out it wasn't their anniversary to begin with. We're introduced to other characters that will pop up later on in the show, like his coworker Norm. We get a commercial for the Toastmate 2000 by Stark Industries. Hijinks ensue when the boss comes over. Wanda and Vision, they have no recollection of anything before moving into Westview, we learn. And then the first episode ends with an ominous person watching this broadcast. And I'll go into episode 2 really quick. So episode 2 is now in the style of a 60s sitcom. It kind of changed the era and the stylings of it. We're introduced to the larger Westview world through them participating in the town talent show fundraiser. Vision joins the neighborhood watch because of some suspicious sound they heard the night before. After he goes to the neighborhood watch, Wanda hears another crash outside, and there's a red helicopter in her rose bush, which is like the only bit of color because it's black and white like a 60s sitcom, but the red helicopter's in color. Then Wanda joins the planning committee, where we meet more characters like Dottie as well as Geraldine, who is like another neighbor who befriends Wanda. But yeah, so while Wanda's talking to Dottie at one point, there's a radio on the table that's like calling out to Wanda. There's another commercial in this one for a Strucker watch. And then, so Vision goes to the talent show. He uses his real powers during the talent show, and Wanda has to cover it up because she just wants to fit in with the town. But the town loves it, and they win. And then they go back home, where Wanda is about to go to the kitchen, and she realizes that she's pregnant with a baby bump all of a sudden. And when she's talking to Vision about it, they hear another crash outside, kind of similar to earlier on in the episode. And they go outside, and they see a beekeeper coming out of the sewer. And then Wanda says no, rewinds the show back to the moment where the baby bump happened. And then the show turns to color, which will lead into the third episode. Yep. So that was kind of a lot, because it was kind of summarizing 2 episodes. But what were your thoughts when you watched these first 2 episodes for the first time? What were you thinking the show was going to be about? How did you enjoy these 2 episodes, the format of it? What were you thinking?
So, episode 1, watching it, I thought it was pretty much all in Wanda's head. But when we got to the radio scene in episode 2, because there was no like outside influence in episode 1, but when we got to that radio scene in episode 2, I knew that this was gonna be like something big. This is gonna be like its big own story. This isn't gonna be like Wanda or something is like doing something to like the townspeople, and that's why like nobody knows what's like really going on, and like why Vision was a little bit confused at like at his job. So it was definitely interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I said a similar reaction. Again, I thought this was all going to be in Wanda's head, and that's what I kind of thought when I watched this first episode, and even the second one. But when I watched it for the very first time, I don't want to say I was underwhelmed, because that makes it sound like I didn't like it. But I wasn't the biggest fan. I was expecting a bit more to happen. And also, I just wasn't the sitcom as itself, I'm not a big fan of like those 50s sitcoms, I guess. So, as a sitcom itself,
you just didn't like the style.
The style wasn't doing it much for me. But I made these notes rewatching everything last night. Basically, I watched the whole show from beginning to end last night so far. And I appreciate these episodes much more now that I know where the show goes. Because, maybe it was, when I first watched it, maybe I was being a bit spoiled, wanting a bit more,
Okay.
I was a bit, spoiled, wanting to have a bunch of stuff revealed in the first 2 episodes, when I just should have been patient. Because it really, sets the stage for the show, these 2 episodes, as well as, there's some big payoff, and again, we'll get to it, but there's some big payoff with the most recent episode, that if you didn't watch these episodes for what they were, I don't think it would have paid off the exact same way.
Right.
I was at least happy that at the end of the first episode, they started showing that something was wrong. When Mr. Hart, the boss, was over and he was choking on his steak.
Choking on his what?
Steak.
It wasn't steak.
Oh, it was eggs, right?
It was either eggs or waffles. They were eating
right. They were eating breakfast for dinner. My mistake. Get it, mistake. But when he was choking on his food and his wife was just kind of laughing, saying stop it, and there was really eerie music playing, it really set the stage something's wrong here. And then the second episode was I had a very similar take, where I wasn't a huge fan of just the style, I guess. Not a lot happened, but again, we learn now that didn't need to happen. Right. Rewatching the second episode, I thought Vision was hilarious.
I do too.
When he shows up to the talent show, drunk. Paul Bettany does such a great job. I love Paul Bettany as just what he was doing in this episode. And yeah, not really a whole lot else, I guess, to say about these 2. They just kind of set the tone that something was wrong. Especially with the radio calling out to Wanda. And, we see the red helicopter. We see Dottie having blood come from her hand. And Wanda also, I noticed it more kind of on the second watching also. Like, she doesn't really know what's going on with the blood and stuff. She doesn't kind of understand, I guess, with the color. She tells Vision, she's like, I think something's wrong. What did you think of the commercials when you first watched these ones? Did you have any idea what the commercials were? Or did you just think they were kind of just there just as kind of like Easter egg type little things?
Yeah, pretty much exactly what you just said. I thought they were just like Easter eggs for, like fans of the whole Marvel franchise to just, dissect, pick through. I didn't think they were going to have like any importance. And even now, I still don't know if they have much of any importance. So,
well, I think there's meaning behind them, which I didn't know the meaning. I didn't know the meaning of it yet when I was watching these ones. I thought the Stark toaster was just like, oh, well, Stark Industries did make a bunch of different. I mean, obviously they were weapons dealers, but they also made other just kind of home technology stuff. Like, obviously there was like the Stark Expo, so it was just sort of like a company that they had that they could just use to make a toaster or whatever.
Something just popped into my head about the commercials, and so I kind of want to like save that for later.
Yeah,
but
literally, I go into the commercials deeper later.
Yeah. Okay. If we're having like the same mindset, I can. Are
you thinking of like a sound? Are you thinking of a sound?
No, I'm not. I'm not thinking of a sound now.
Okay, then we'll get to it though.
We'll get to it.
And then a similar thing with the Hydra Watch, where I was the Hydra Watch, actually, I thought when I first saw it, I was like, oh, is that like are Hydra controlling her, like in her mind? Did like Hydra, after the events of like Endgame or whatever, capture her? And maybe like they're the ones that are inside her mind, or maybe that's like the mysterious person, like at the end of episode 1 that's watching the show and stuff, are the agents of Hydra. So yeah. So moving on to episode 3. There's a bit more meat in this one. This one's moved up. We're in the 70s now. This one's all about Wanda and Vision preparing to have their baby. They're decorating their house. They're practicing changing diapers and stuff. Wanda is being checked on by a doctor, and the doctor says she's 4 months pregnant, even though it's only been like a day. Other stuff is we start to see Vision sort of begin to question things. He sees Herb outside their house, like cutting between their stone wall. Wanda's stomach, it continues to grow. It's going at an alarming rate. Wanda wants to name the kid Billy. No, Tommy. Vision wants to name the kid Billy after William Shakespeare. And then Wanda begins to contract. And when she does that, her powers begin to act up. Vision then, he kind of expresses that something's wrong to Wanda, and when he does that, the show gets rewound, and when she does that, that's when her water breaks. And then we had another commercial, this time for Hydra Soak, but after the water breaks, Vision goes to get a doctor, and while Vision's gone, Geraldine arrives at Wanda's house, and Wanda is trying to hide her stomach because at this point they want to hide their powers from the town. They don't want to be weird, they just want to fit in. But she can't really hide it for too much longer. Geraldine eventually, realizes that Wanda's pregnant and helps her give birth. Wanda ends up giving birth before Vision and the doctor get back to a beautiful baby boy, until we find out that she's not pregnant with one child, but with twins. Yeah, so Vision walks the doctor outside, where we see Agnes talking to Herb back at that stone wall. Very suspiciously, they tell Vision that Geraldine is not from around here, and while they're saying that, inside, Wanda tells Geraldine about how she was a twin, and Geraldine brings up the fact that Pietro is killed by Ultron, which freaks Wanda hell out, and she's questioning Geraldine who she is, and when Vision comes back inside, Geraldine is nowhere to be found. We find out that she was shot out of, it looked like a force field, and now government personnel surround her as she lies on the floor. So, with this episode, Joaquin, what were your thoughts now?
I recently rewatched, not every episode of the show. I rewatched, I think, the first 6 episodes. And this episode didn't really stick out to me. And that's probably because the next episode explains a lot of what's going on with the show. But for just this episode, it's like, Wanda... This is kind of the episode that made me think, okay, maybe Wanda isn't in control of what's happening here. because she, like, you kind of glossed over it. I don't even think you mentioned it at all, but there was, like, a stork that was, like, chasing Wanda around the house. And like,
right, yeah, that's when she was trying to hide her pregnancy from Geraldine. The contractions were going on, and, like, a stork, she couldn't control her powers.
Right, the stork, like, she couldn't, like, get rid of him. So I was thinking that, like, maybe this isn't Wanda, like, causing all this. So other than that, I didn't expect 2 babies either.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think I like this one better than the first 2.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just the fact there was color in it.
More interesting because
it's sort of it's kind of the last episode where we're kind of completely unaware of what's going on. Obviously throughout the whole show there's still a bunch of questions about what exactly is happening, but this is sort of the last one where this is right before they explain stuff to us. I think when I first watched it, it felt really fast. There wasn't a whole lot of different aspects to the episode. It was really just them in Wanda's house.
Yeah. Just
pacing about and talking about the kids. It went by really quick. And again, it was more just planting seeds that something's wrong. We get Vision. This is the first time where Vision starts to be like, oh, something isn't right here, when he, like, talks to Herb and Agnes outside. And then, of course, we get the name drop. It kind of blew up Twitter when it happened, when they name dropped Pietro and Ultron in it. But yeah, this was the episode that kind of, obviously the next one, it's an exposition dump, the next one, which kind of explains everything. But this one was the one where I was like, maybe it isn't all in Wanda's head. But it was good. The kids are still a question to me, even up till now, about exactly what they are. But obviously they're not normal kids because they grew super quick. And also, how the hell does Vision have kids? The birds and the bees, I guess, but they don't got no honey, those bees, so I don't really know.
Unless Tony was like some weird motherfucker.
Yeah. And then episode 4, we get a major exposition dump. It's a episode completely compiled of backstory that leads up to the discovery of whatever Wanda's doing. So we open up on Geraldine, or at least who we thought was Geraldine, who's actually revealed to be Monica Rambeau, who is the daughter of Marie Rambeau from the Captain Marvel movies. Monica's actually in the Captain Marvel movies, obviously played by a younger actor.
Right.
And she's inside the hospital and she gets unsnapped, which also gives us a good kind of timeline of when this takes place. It takes place basically directly after Endgame. After she gets unsnapped, we see her head to the SWORD headquarters, which is the Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. It was founded by her mother, who was the director. She's no longer the director because she passed away 3 years ago, and there's a new director, Director Hayward. And Hayward gives Monica a ground mission to assist the FBI with a missing persons case.
Yep.
So that's when Monica meets up with Jimmy Woo.
Woo!
Can we, get a round of applause for Jimmy Woo, who is also just taking the internet by storm. People love Jimmy Woo, especially on TikTok. People love Jimmy Woo, or Randall Park, I should say. But Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man 2, he's an FBI agent in there. She meets him at Westview, New Jersey, and she finds out that what was originally a missing persons case is actually a missing town case. Nobody has any recollection of this town, Westview, New Jersey. Jimmy doesn't really want to go inside it. He's like, it doesn't want me to go inside. But Monica, after they send a drone in and it disappears, she's like, I gotta check this out. And she gets closer and she gets sucked in to this like force field around this town.
Right.
In
the Hex.
New Jersey. Yes. Which will later be known as the Hex. And so after this happens, SWORD, they set up base camp outside of the Hex. And we find out that when things go into the perimeter of this anomaly, they lose contact with it. So when they send in drones and stuff, they lose contact with it. But they get a bunch of researchers to come and try to figure it out. And one of those researchers is Darcy Lewis from the Thor movies. And she discovers that there are actually wavelengths emanating from this force field, and as well as like cosmic radiation and stuff. But there's wavelengths that when she hooks up a TV to, they get the broadcast of WandaVision, the sitcom. So we get kind of them rewatching, episodes 1 through 3. Darcy and Jimmy, they're trying to keep track of the show and taking notes and IDing all of the residents that Wanda has captured and recast as the townspeople. They don't know that Wanda's done it yet, but they just know that Wanda's in the show. SWORD, they send a person subterraneously to try to go into the thing, which we then find out that person turns into the beekeeper that we see in episode 2 that comes out of the sewer. When he goes into the hex, things are changed. He's no longer wearing his sword like a radiation chute, and that turns into the beekeeper outfit that he's wearing. And then eventually they find that Monica is on the show. And so Darcy devises a plan to communicate inside the hex, where she has Jimmy Woo kind of talk over the radio, and we find that he was the person communicating through the radio in episode 2. And then we catch up to episode 3, or the events of episode 3, where we watch what actually happened to Geraldine when she confronted Wanda, and we see Wanda blast that girl, blast her across town outside of the hex. We also see that when Vision comes inside the house, Wanda sees him as like a corpse. Like his body looks like how it looked when Thanos ripped the Mind Stone out of his head. He's got a big dent in his head. He's got blank eyes, but it's just a glimpse, and then it goes back to the normal Vision that Wanda sees. And then at the end of it, we are caught up where the last episode ended, where Monica is now outside the hex laying down, and she says the words, "It's all Wanda." This episode, it was definitely my favorite so far. And for a while, it's been my favorite. Because here's a little thing you might not know about me, Joaquin. I'm a sucker for exposition.
Really?
I love myself some exposition. I love some good explaining.
Okay. Well, Jason, very similar thought process. This is also my favorite episode. This is still my favorite episode. I like the explaining. I like the character interactions a lot in this episode between Jimmy and Darcy. I like the whole IDing scene. I like getting to know like a little bit of what's currently going on. So this episode was just really good to me. It gave me everything I wanted.
Me too. I really love how it opened with the unsnapping in the hospital. Because we see like a little glimpse of it. We see it more comedically in Spider-Man Far From Home. Where like some of the kids are getting unsnapped inside the school or whatever. But this shows like a little tiny like glimpse into the horror that must have been going on. It showed the chaos, like a little because that's just like in the hospital. What happens with like people that are in airplanes and stuff? I mean, I imagine they're probably in the airplane seat, not necessarily in the sky.
I don't know. Was Hulk that specific?
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. It was so great to get a little bit of like that, classic kind of MCU style, because also the aspect ratio is now kind of
21:9.
Yeah, it's the normal widescreen ratio that they usually do for the movies. It looks like an MCU movie. And again, I just love me some exposition. Love me some Jimmy Woo showing up. I really enjoyed, kind of the introduction to SWORD and stuff. But yeah, there were certain things in this episode that, like, if you really want to nitpick, like, I know there were certain times where the show didn't, like, canonically, like, follow exactly what was going on. Like, they showed, like, a scene from, I think, later on in, like, episode 2 before they found Monica, like, later on. So certain things didn't, like, line up super great, but that could just be a production kind of error thing. I remember also on, like, one of the notes cards or whatever, it mentions, like, Vision snapping somebody out, I think, like the Norm, I think, which we'll talk about later on. I think that was written down on, like, his note card thing. But again, that was probably just a little production thing that they didn't think anybody was actually going to read. Yeah. I don't think it was like an intentional sort of thing. So there's little things to nitpick, but overall, I really enjoyed this episode. This is when I was like, okay, now the show's kicking into high gear. Now we're getting into, wider MCU, shenanigans. I know. Now we move on to episode 5. It's the first hybrid sitcom / like quote unquote real world episode where it kind of cuts back and forth between inside the hex and outside the hex. This week, it is in the style of like the late 80s, early 90s Full House, type show, type sitcom. WandaVision, they're learning and slightly struggling to take care of these, newborn babies, Billy and Tommy. Agnes comes over to help out, And when she shows up, she does something really weird. She asked, told the babies and stuff, and Vision's like, I don't think you should. And that's when she's like, should I redo that? Do you want me to come in and do that again to Wanda? Mm-hmm. And that freaks Vision out a lot. He's like, what the hell's going on with this?
Wanda notices it, but then pretends it didn't happen.
Yeah, she plays it off. She's like, oh, Agnes, she's kind of kooky and crazy. It's fine. But Vision, he's furthering his suspicion that something's wrong here. The twins, all of a sudden, they age up to 6 years old out of nowhere. And again, they just kind of play it off. They're like, oh, they grow up so fast or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we cut back to reality where Monica is sort of briefing people on, what happened inside the Hex. She talks about how she was under Wanda's control and how helpless or hopeless it was. Her lab results come back and they're blank, but she's done here. She just wants to get to work, and she goes to the debriefing meeting. Hayward and Agent Wu, they kind of brief everybody on Wanda's history, her upbringing in Sokovia, her work with Hydra. Hayward's kind of trying to make her out to look really bad. Agent Wu, Jimmy Woo, he's a nice guy. He's being like, yeah, she's a good person. The Avengers trust her, right. But Hayward, he's making it seem like she's a bad person. He shows security footage of Wanda taking Vision's body, breaking into Sword headquarters where they were storing it, and taking the body. We'll get to it. We'll put some air quotes around that. Which would break the Sokovia Accords and also Vision's will. And so Hayward's trying to frame her as a terrorist, despite the fact that Monica doesn't think that she has any ill intent. Back inside the sitcom, Wanda, they find Billy and Tommy with a dog in the sink. They really want to keep the dog, and then Agnes shows up out of the blue with a dog house right when they need it, which again, yep. Vision's like, oh, of course, she shows up exactly at the right time with what we need. Still, they're like, well, boys, you can't really have this dog until you're 10. And so what do the boys do? Age up to 10 right then and there. Mm-hmm. And so now they get to keep the dog. Back to reality now. Again, there's a lot of going back and forth. So Monica, she's figuring out how to safely enter the anomaly, and she says that she knows an engineer that can help her go inside. She also says that everything in the Hex is real. Even though it looks like it's fake, it's not a hallucination that the townspeople are having. Everything that's inside the Hex is really there. When she kind of says that, she has the thought to inspect her clothes, and the pants that she came out with, her 70s style pants, are made of Kevlar, which they realize that Wanda, she turned her Kevlar vest into the clothes. She had to have something to make something. They theorize that that Wanda takes pre-existing things and rewrites them to fit the theme of the show. So then back in the sitcom, Vision's at work, and a suspicious email gets sent over to the computers at work, and it's from Darcy, kind of warning about, the I forget what they call it, the Maximoff anomaly or something like that. And Vision's like, what the hell is that? And then he touches Norm, his coworker, and it breaks him out of this spell that we assume Wanda has over him. And Norm just freaks out. He's like, I need to call my sister. I'm stuck in here. Please help us. She's in my head. I can't take it. And Vision, to kind of calm him down, he puts him back into it. And Norm goes back to being underneath the spell. We go back out to the real world. Monica uses an old 80s drone to infiltrate the anomaly because it's an 80s style TV show. If they take 80s technology, it won't get changed because it's already in the right time period. Right. And so she uses that to communicate to Wanda, but what she doesn't realize is Hayward armed the drone, and they try to take out Wanda. Wanda isn't having any of that. She comes out of the Hex with the busted drone in hand, and she basically tells them, this is your only warning, leave me alone. And they try to barter with her. They're like, what do you want? We can give you what you want. She goes, I already have what I want. And she goes back inside the Hex. While this is happening, Sparky, their new dog, he runs away. There's another commercial. We get a commercial for Lagos brand paper towels. But yeah, so now the kids, they're looking for Sparky, and they found him, or Agnes finds him in her azalea bush dead because he ate some of the leaves. and the kids are begging Wanda to bring him back to life, but she tells them, like, boys, I can't do that. And Agnes is like, can you? And she's like, no, I can't do that. Then we cut back home, and this is where the episode gets hella spicy. Back home, Vision confronts Wanda about what's going on. He's like, I talked to Norm, not the person that you're portraying him as, but the man underneath. Mm-hmm. He has a family. What you're doing is wrong. He's like, I know that, like, you probably have good intentions, but this is not right, Wanda. Like, what you've got to, do what's right. And she tries to change the subject. She tries to roll the credits to try to get him to stop talking to her, and he's not having it. He's like, no, what's going on? He's freaked out because he doesn't remember, like, anything before Westview, and he says that he's scared. And she tries to, like, calm him down, saying, like, you're my husband. That's all you need. She's like, I don't know how this started. I don't know what's going on. I'm not controlling everything. And then you hear a knock on the door, and she opens up the door. And at that door is none other than
Mrs. Peabody. Come on out here.
Today's Peabody Potato Fact of the Day is brought to you by Peabody Potatoes. Whether it's baked, mashed, fried, or even microwaved, Peabody Potatoes gives you the nutritional boost to get you through your day. Potato Land is the 13th episode of the 2013 Mickey Mouse TV series.
Does she sound different to you? That's kind of, I don't know, strange.
Yeah. Like, what's going on with her? It's like, did she get sucked in too?
Did she get recast by the Hex?
I don't know.
Oh my God! But you know who else got recast? That's Pietro.
Mm-hmm. That's
Evan
true.
Peters, Pietro, from the X-Men movies, from the Fox X-Men movies, is at Wanda's door. And then it goes to credits. What were you feeling after this episode?
So this is definitely a more interesting episode in the fact that, like, Wanda is now not really afraid to, like, show her powers, or at least, like, she's a little more open about it. She's not trying to hide it as much, especially in front of Agnes. So it's like we know.
I forgot to say that she used her powers in front of Agnes.
Right. So she's, like, really trusting of Agnes, which is kind of interesting. The real world stuff, I think, is really neat. Like the rewriting of basically whatever goes into the Hex. If it's not, like, the same time period, it gets rewritten to what Wanda wants it to be, which I think is super interesting. I think it was really clever to have, like, Monica's clothes basically be, like, bulletproof armor. Other than that, like, it was kind of a slow episode until, like, Wanda came out of the Hex and was, like, warning them, don't mess with me.
Yeah, when that happened, like, I was like, oh my God, this is getting
pointed
real
all
now.
The guns at Hayward.
Yeah, she also had her accent.
Yeah, it came back. They'll talk about that more later, but she also turned the Hex red. And I don't even know what that did specifically.
I thought it was red already.
No, when she was walking back into the Hex, it looked like she was using her powers to barricade herself, but it turned the whole Hex red.
I didn't notice that.
That I wonder if that has any meaning. I guess we don't really know. Maybe it was just to, like, prevent them from sending in any more stuff.
What do you think? What were your thoughts when Evan Peters showed up as Pietro? You know, did you watch any of the X-Men movies that he was in, or did you just happen to know that he was? Okay.
I didn't even know it was Evan Peters at first, which is kind of dumb because obviously it looks like Evan Peters, but it just wasn't. I just thought, like, they, like, recast Pietro. This is, like, a different person. That's the number one thing that came into my head.
Right.
I think you were the one that told me that was from that was X-Men Pietro.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, they brought Pietro back in some form. This is kind of interesting. We also had a conversation because we were talking about like how JJ is back. He was in the post-credit scene from Far From Home, and it was J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons.
JJ.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I was like, maybe it ties into that, you know, a little bit of that, but I really don't know.
Yeah, when Evan Peters showed up, I was like, okay, the door's blowing off, like what they can do with this show. Because I knew that it was going into Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and also Spider-Man, which we know Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2 and Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2 are going to show up in it. And there's a chance, even though they say they're not going to, like Tom Holland says they won't, but he's probably
maybe Tom Holland just doesn't know.
Yeah. Well, I think he knows. I don't think he's saying it, though. But there's probably going to be Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield that show up in the new Spider-Man movie. So we know that there's stuff going on with the multiverse. And so when Evan Peters showed up in this, part of me was I didn't know for a fact what he was or who he was or how, you know. But part of me was like, oh my God, they're really bringing in like characters from the X-Men like Fox universe, you know, because why would you bring him in if you're not going to? Maybe they're just pulling our leg, which they're probably just pulling our leg with it. But yeah, that made me think because Kevin Feige, he said, you know, I have a 5-year plan. I'm not gonna put the Fantastic Four, X-Men, or anything until that 5-year plan is completed. Like I'm not gonna, you know, retcon or rewrite anything to like shoehorn them in. But when Evan Peters showed up, I was like, what if he did change his mind? You know, what if we do somehow get, and who knows, we still don't know, there's still an episode left, but what if we do get like a Magneto? And yeah, so this episode is really, I think, what opened up all the different theories. You know, for the majority, not every theory, but it opened up a bunch of them because there was that, and then also, what did you make of the engineer?
Yeah,
because a lot of theories came from that too about what that was going to be, which eventually, you know, we'll figure that out. But
yeah. I didn't really have anything based on that either. It wasn't until like people started like speculating, oh, this could be so and so. But at the time, I just thought like it was going to be like a random person from the no one related to the MCU. A new character maybe, but I don't know.
So then we move on to episode 6. We're in the style of Malcolm in the Middle, the early 2000s type of sitcoms. It's the kids' first Halloween. You know, there's cool stuff like Wanda and Vision dressed up in their classic comic book costumes, which is, they say it's like a Sokovian fortune teller and a Mexican wrestler. Really cool nod to the comics. Pietro and Tommy are also dressed up in the classic Quicksilver costume. But yeah, so Vision goes out to do neighborhood watch stuff, or claims to be doing neighborhood watch, and Pietro and Wanda go out to trick or treat with the kids. Outside the anomaly, Hayward, you know, sends Monica, Darcy, and Jimmy off the base after they try to like argue with him about, you know, the drone strike that he tried to do in the last episode. And while being escorted off the base, we get some good old Jimmy Woo action. And him and Monica, they take down some of the soldiers escorting them out, and they sneak back in to, you know, hack into the mainframe, the sword mainframe, to figure out what the heck Hayward's doing, because they think he's up to something. Back in the Hex, Wanda, they're doing trick-or-treating. Wanda finds out that Vision actually isn't on the neighborhood watch. He's actually exploring the edge of town and sort of trying to find answers. On the edge of town, he sees that people are like barely moving and like they're crying. It's actually kind of like disturbing at certain parts.
Yeah.
And then we get a Yo Magic commercial. Oh, okay. I gotta backtrack a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because it was in the last episode with the Lagos brand paper towels where I added up all the clues of what the commercials are. Now, they have kind of morphed into some different stuff from this episode on, but those original 4 commercials, they were all signifying parts of Wanda's past. And the Lagos thing was definitely the thing that like put it over the edge to me. Okay. And some of these things get confirmed, but this is still what I was thinking before it was even confirmed. So we got the Stark toaster, the Stark Industries toaster, and we knew in Age of Ultron that her family was killed in a Stark airstrike, and her and Pietro hid from a Stark bomb for 2 days. Which again, that may or may not be confirmed later on, but that's kind of the first tragedy. Then we have the 2 Hydra things, which her and Pietro were experimented on at Hydra, and that's how they got their powers and stuff. Then the Lagos brand, it was in Lagos where she accidentally like blew up half a building, and Captain America Civil War, which put a lot of like strain on her. She was like, maybe I'm not like meant to do this or whatever. Like they're all signifying certain kind of tragedies or trauma from Wanda's past.
So I kind of agree. I kind of agree with you. You have like the basic premise, right? One big thing you're forgetting, and this touches into the latest episode that's out, episode 8.
Right.
So I am kind of skipping ahead, but the fact that you brought all this up, I feel like it's fine to bring it up now. Episode 8, we see that Wanda and Pietro with their mom and dad were watching American sitcoms, and Wanda picked The Honeymooners. That's when the Stark airstrike happened, and Wanda sees the bomb that says Stark Industries on it, the dud bomb that says Stark Industries on it. My thought was, and this gets confirmed in the next thought, not really confirmed, it's still up to interpretation, but it gets confirmed in like the next story where we see her being like captured by Hydra and she's watching TV. But she's connecting these like companies or basically these events in her life to sitcoms that she watched as she was growing up. So you have her watching The Honeymooners, but then the Stark airstrike happened, so she sees the Stark Industries logo, which is why the first episode you had like the Stark toaster. And then she was watching more sitcoms while she was captured by Hydra. So she connected Hydra to those sitcoms that she was watching at the time. The Lagos, she was watching Malcolm in the Middle. So that's when that happened. The only thing I don't know is the yogurt.
We'll get into that. We're getting to that because that's in this episode that we're talking about.
Yeah, but you see what I mean? Do you kind of understand what I mean by that?
I do, but it doesn't add up. I don't think it adds up completely. Okay. Because also the Malcolm, because you try to connect Malcolm in the Middle, to the Lagos thing. The Lagos brand paper towels, those were in the Full House episode.
Yeah.
So it doesn't add up completely.
Okay.
I kind of got. Okay. I got what you were saying. You were on a bit of a roll, but also some of this stuff doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like especially like the TV show she was watching and the Hydra thing, that was a colored show, and both the Hydra ones, well, at least one of them was a black and white one, like the Strucker watch, which is the scientist that experimented on her and stuff.
Well, that I kind of thought, like, because we saw her like skip a couple shows. The only show we saw in the Hydra one was the 70s one. I can't remember the name. So I took it up as like she was watching the 60s one before that, which would explain like the
Okay.
other Hydra commercial. That's kind of the way I saw it.
Right. Well, anyways, back to this one.
Yeah.
We have the Yo Magic. We have in this one. There's a commercial for Yo Magic yogurt. We then Pietro and Wanda, they talk. We realize Pietro isn't under her control. He knows what's going on. He's aware that she's controlling this place, and he's asking her questions like, how'd you do it and stuff. She also sees him like a zombie with bullet holes in him, kind of similar to how she saw Vision in one of the episodes, like a zombie. The kids develop their powers. Back in reality, Darcy that manages to hack into the mainframe, like the SWORD database, and she finds out a couple things. She finds out that they're tracking Vision's vibranium. She finds out that Monica's genetic makeup has been altered by going in and out of the hex, and she also finds a project called Project Cataract. Excuse me. And so then Wanda and Jimmy, they find out that her people are an hour out with the thing that will let her go back into the hex. So her and Jimmy leave, but Darcy stays. In the hex, Vision, he reaches the edge of town. He sees Agatha, she sees Agnes. She sees Agnes in her car, and she is under Wanda's spell, and so he snaps her out of it, and she again is like, help us, you're dead. Yeah, you remember the Avengers, but he doesn't. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what an Avenger is. But he snaps her back. He goes to the edge and he tries to exit. And while he's exiting it, he's being ripped apart. Eventually, Billy can sense that his dad is in pain, and he tells Wanda. And so Wanda expands the hex, encasing sucking back in Vision, as well as like the majority of the sword base, which turns into like a circus. And the only people that get away are Monica, Jimmy, and Hayward, and Darcy's like sucked in too. What were your thoughts on this one?
Okay, so this one, me and you already kind of talked about this before, but my thoughts was especially on how we see the outer edge of town. My thought on like why those people are kind of like frozen there and like crying is because Wanda has very limited control over them.
Right, she doesn't have that much power.
Yeah, my thought at the time was Wanda basically had very limited control over them. Like, her power can't reach that far fully. Her power kind of like drifts off at that point. Which may be the case. We don't really know. There's like a later episode that might explain it a little better.
Yeah, the next episode kind of does.
So that's kind of like why I thought like all the people were just kind of like standing there. At this point, I also think that the Hex is keeping Vision alive, which is why the Hex was sucking him back. I don't know if anybody did try to help Vision out and like take him out of the Hex.
Yeah,
I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know if that would have like been successful at all. I think Vision needs the Hex to stay alive, and that might also be confirmed based on a later episode. Those are kind of like my general thoughts on the episode.
Yeah, I at this point, episode 4, like that big exposition dump was still my favorite. But out of all the ones that still had the sitcom in it, this was probably my favorite. I really loved the Malcolm in the Middle vibe to it. I really like it. If they made that just into a show, I'd watch that. I really liked all the little Easter eggs and stuff with the classic costumes. This made me question even more about what Quicksilver was, or if it was actually Quicksilver, or what's going on. It also made me question like what the twins were, because the twins they manifest their powers. So, they have like super speed, and the other one can control has similar powers to Wanda. And so yeah, it was more just questioning what was going on. The one thing that I knew though, or was pretty certain on, and I've had this theory probably since like the 3rd or 5th episode maybe, was that Agnes was no good. When Vision found her on the edge of town, it was confirmed later on. I'll say that it was confirmed, but I was like, she's acting that she's playing the fool here, because everybody on the edge of town, they're not moving, but she's moving and stuff even before Vision snaps her out. Like, I knew something was up with her. And so then she drives away, and then Vision being ripped apart coming out of the Hex. Yeah, that pretty much confirms for the most part that whatever kind of state this Vision is in, he can't survive outside the Hex. And I was also I got blue-balled by this episode too, because I was expecting to see that engineer, that aerospace engineer in this episode, but they were like, all right, cliffhanger, next one, which got me excited for the next one. Yep. Which we'll cover that.
Oh man.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed it quite a bit, this one. It left me with even more questions though, especially with like what the heck, Pietro was. Obviously he's not normal. And I don't think, this was one where I was like, I don't think he's also the X-Men character. I don't think it's somebody that's sucked from another dimension. Universe. I think he's something else, but I don't know what he is. But yes, so that was that one.
Real quick before we hop into the next episode.
Do you have to pee again?
No, I don't have to pee.
Oh, magic. I also got to talk about that. But
okay. Okay, you go. Let me say this first, and then you go over Yo Magic. It'll be really quick. This to me is the last good episode of WandaVision. So let me explain. I was really, first of all, I love Malcolm in the Middle. It's probably like one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. I love some. So you pull into my heartstrings right there, Disney. Right. All right, you know what you do. You feed in your audience. This is like the last. This might be better explained in the next episodes, but the next episode's kind of like, I don't really like the style they were going for, if that makes sense.
Now, when you say it's the last good episode of WandaVision, are you talking about the sitcom WandaVision or the actual show on Disney Plus WandaVision?
Well, I don't want to talk about the next episode, but this is like the last good complete episode of WandaVision. I'll say that.
Okay.
I'll
I'm
say
very curious to get, because little bit peeling behind the curtain for those listening. We tried to record an episode a couple weeks ago, and this was the episode that was out. So we've kind of talked about all this stuff before with each other. Coming up, these next two we have talked very little about with each other.
Right.
So that
we had like a quick text exchange, but that was about it.
Yeah. Okay.
And nothing about episode 8.
Well, I'll go over the Fijo Magic commercial and my thoughts on that.
Yeah, go ahead, because I'm very interested.
Now, I'll explain it, what I think it actually is now, when we get to episode 8. But when I saw it, this episode, I thought that was not necessarily part of Wanda's past, but the commercials were now turning into sort of foreshadowing the future. And I thought that kind of showed that there was some kind of being or entity that was behind all of this, that was trying to feed off of Wanda's magic. I thought that was what this was saying. That it's showing, because they say in it, I feed off yo magic. I was like, okay, well, somebody's going to feed off Wanda's magic. I think it's a little bit possibly less deep, which we'll find out when we talk about episode 8. But
one theory I did hear, because I've been looking at like theories and stuff too.
Right.
The shark is Tony Stark, because he had like the beard, like the hair, the sunglasses that Tony wears. That's but I think that was like the only thing that like possibly connecting them.
Right.
I think it's interesting. It could be, or.
Right. Yeah, I saw a lot of things kind of like people saying, what if it's talking about like when Wanda and like Pietro were kids and they were like starving or something like that. But I don't think that's what it is. I think it's more so talking about what's happening in the future. Or well, we'll get to it. But yeah, I think after the Lagos commercial, all the commercials were more so like foreshadowing stuff. The other ones I thought were about the past, like Lagos and all that stuff before was about Wanda's past, and the other ones were now foreshadowing the future. And there's a commercial in episode 7 that I think helps that theory. And now we move on to episode 7, which is in the style of Modern Family, the sitcom part of it. Which
you say Modern Family, I say The Office.
It's all the same. Modern Family, Office, Parks and Rec, like that kind of style show. But okay, so it has more of an Office type theme song.
Definitely.
But the house is modeled after the Modern Family house, like the decor and like the paint and stuff like that.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, like those kind of like fake like mockumentary sitcom type shows. They talk to the camera and stuff. Which I take it you probably don't like, based on what you just said about how you're not really a big fan.
No, I do not.
But yeah, so we see that now Wanda, she's lost a grip on things after she expanded the hex. Things are changing, like the kids control her, and she like tries to pour some milk, and that changes to like different areas. She can't really control it, and she just needs a break. Outside the hex, Hayward and Sword, they regroup, and Hayward says like, all right, prepare, we're launching today, to his team. Back inside the hex, Vision, he wakes up like next to like that sword circus type thing, and he finds Darcy and snaps her out of it, and the two of them head to go back to Wanda's place. Then Agnes shows up at Wanda's house, and she offers to take care of the kids and let Wanda have a me day, so she takes the kids over to her house. Outside, Monica and Jimmy, they head up to meet with her people. Jimmy, he gets a text message about the cataract plans, and he finds out that Hayward was trying to bring Vision back to life and use him as a weapon. And they meet up with none other than Major Goodner, a character that I do not think has ever been introduced in anything ever. Now, should we bring? I'll finish the summary.
Yeah,
so we meet up with Major Goodner, who has like this vehicle. It's like a Mars rover type, not Mars rover, but like a space rover armored thing to try to breach the hex without it kind of being transformed by the radiation and stuff like that. Wanda, back inside the hex, her powers are still going off the wall. She can't control the furniture. She can't think of why she can't fix it. And the cameraman says, "Do you think you deserve it?" Which is another like, what the fuck's going on? She's like, what? And then we get a commercial for Nexus antidepressants. Billy at Agnes' house says that she's quiet on the inside compared to everything else, being really loud. Outside, Monica, she prepares to re-enter the Hex in this new vehicle. She tries to push through, but the vehicle is still being changed. And so she decides, okay, I'm just going to walk through. And so she walks through by herself, and through going through the Hex a second time or a third time, Monica, she develops powers, which, you know, in the comic book she had powers as well, which I believe is along the lines of seeing and controlling energy.
Mm-hmm.
I believe. I'm not the most up-to-date with Monica Rambeau and the comic book stuff. But also we kind of see the power lines and stuff and the energy kind of going off of them. She has her eyes light up. She has a superhero landing, all the good stuff. Back with Darcy and Vision, Darcy, she explains the history to Vision, and, you know, what's going on, you know, before Westview, from his birth to his death, like twice. She explains everything, but she makes sure he knows that the one thing that's real though is Wanda's love for him. Very beautiful. They're also hitting a bunch of roadblocks because they don't think that Wanda wants him to go home. So Vision eventually he's like, all right, I'm done with this, and he flies home, or he goes to fly home. Monica then confronts / warns Wanda about Hayward's plan for Vision and to burn Westview down in the process. But Agnes swoops in and takes Wanda away and brings her inside her home. And inside the house, Wanda has no idea where the kids are. She has a weird feeling. Agnes says they're probably in the basement, so Wanda heads down there. And in the basement, there is a secret lair / crypt. And Agnes reveals herself to be Agatha Harkness, another witch, and is revealed to be the person who's messing up everything and pulling all the evil strings. It was Agatha all along. That's lyrics from the song.
Great theme song.
I don't think it's the best theme song in the show, but well, maybe we can touch on that in a little bit. Yeah, so we see that she was controlling Quicksilver. We see that she faked being under Wanda's control, that she was the cameraman from earlier on in this episode, and she killed Sparky.
Monster.
And then we finally get an end credit scene with Monica go into the basement, and Quicksilver pops up, and he says, "Snooper's gonna snoop." And then it cuts. So you didn't like this episode?
No, I did not. Let me just get into a couple quick things.
Yes.
We see Vision. He's at the circus. That's fine. He sees Darcy. He wakes her up into
he snaps her out of the trance.
Right. Back into reality. The thing I don't get is Vision isn't pretending to hide himself at all in front of these clown people. In front of the circus people. Why doesn't he just pick up Darcy and fly back to the house and then have Darcy explain along the way? Vision, you can fly. You don't need to take this clown truck, drive it, have Darcy drive it.
That's true.
That was just annoying.
They do kind of touch on that later on in the episode. He's like, "What the hell am I doing here? Well, I can fly," and then he flies later on.
Okay, but just because you state a problem that you've created doesn't give that's no excuse. You know, that's not an excuse. So I had a real that just seemed like filler in a series that I don't think needed any filler. Another thing. Monica's friend. This was this big hyped up thing, and even Monica's actor, she was on social media saying, "You guys won't believe who this is." So oh man, maybe this is someone super. This is gonna be someone super important, and then it's just this absolute nobody who I don't think is ever gonna have any relevance in any Marvel show ever again. I don't know who this is.
She could show up in Captain Marvel.
Maybe. I don't think so.
Right.
I also do not like the like you said, the mockumentary kind of style. I think it's really forced when you have people pretending to do a documentary. I don't like that. I don't really care for The Office. I haven't seen Modern Family, but from commercials I've seen of it, I don't think I'd enjoy it too much.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen Parks and Rec either, so
good.
I know you like Parks and Rec.
Keep going, though.
That's kind of where all the bad stuff is, but that bad stuff leaves a really sour taste in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Revealing that Agnes was really Agatha with that sweet theme song, by the way. Sweet theme song. Best theme.
I think the Malcolm in the Middle theme song's better.
Okay.
And I also kind of think that like the episode 2 theme song, because it's kind of synonymous with the show now. The WandaVision, WandaVision. That's kind of like when people think of the WandaVision theme song, that's what they think of. Mm-hmm. That's also pretty much that's a banger too. But
yeah, but yeah.
So
the post credit scene, is the first one we've gotten throughout the entire series. It seems like until the end of the series we're gonna get one every episode now. I think I'm gonna disagree with you, because you don't think this is like actually Quicksilver. We saw that Agatha was controlling him. I think this is gonna be like an alternate universe Quicksilver. I think it's gonna be an alternate universe MCU Quicksilver though, because we saw him with the bullets in his body. I don't think Agatha showed Wanda like with the dead bodies.
Well, I don't think that was I mean, maybe they will reveal that was Agnes, but I think that was just sort of a trope that they do in a lot of stuff where, you know, the character they're talking to somebody and then they have a quick kind of, they break focus and they have like a quick glimpse of them as like I don't know, in this case it's zombies, because the Vision one originally in episode 3, I thought that was actually her breaking focus and looking at Vision's body that she stole with the hole in it. I mean, this is kind of spoiling, but we learned that that's not necessarily the case in the next episode. So I think this was simply, I don't think Agatha showed her that. I think that was simply Wanda in her own head reliving that for a quick, like breaking focus and reliving that for a quick second.
Yeah.
Seeing the holes in Pietro.
Yeah, basically that's everything I gotta say. Give me your thoughts.
I think this is the weakest episode. Now, I love Parks and Rec. I quite enjoy The Office. And if an episode of Modern Family was on TV when I used to have cable, I'd turn it on if there was nothing else to watch.
Okay.
I think the sitcom part of this did feel kind of forced. Like, it didn't feel like... And I know you said that you think The Office seems forced. I don't think that. But this one this episode especially seemed like, especially following the Malcolm in the Middle episode, which again, I would watch that as a normal sitcom if that was a sitcom, like with those characters.
Absolutely.
I probably wouldn't. I don't think it. I mean, maybe this would have like what The Office and Parks and Rec do, where the first season is always bad and then it gets good afterwards. but still, yeah. No, I don't know. I thought this was a tale of two episodes in one, kind of. The first half was kind of just meh. But I thought the ending of this episode, I think it finished strong, this episode. Now with the engineer, I don't think, whatever her name, Major Cooper or whatever, I don't think that she is the engineer. I think she just transported it. Now I don't know if we're going to see the engineer in episode 9. I don't know if that's just going to be something that we never see at all. I don't know if it's going to be something that we explore in a later movie, but I don't think she was the engineer. I think they have that left open to where, say in the Fantastic Four movie, it's revealed that it was a Reed Richard that did it, or something, or something they could fill in later. I don't think that she was the engineer. I was very underwhelmed though when it was just this random military person. I was like, oh my god. I also thought that the reveal of Agatha was done kind of poorly. I mean, I was happy that it was revealed that it was Agatha, because that's what I was theorizing. But I don't know, when she came out and she, had the bunny in her arm and she was, stereotypical villain kind of petting it and going, "Hello, Wanda. You thought you were it? Well, I'm actually Agatha Harkness, another witch." It just felt really kind of forced and a little corny, honestly. Now, I think the next episode makes up for it quite a bit. I think the performance is much better in the next episode, because we only get a little bit of Agatha in this one. But yeah, I thought this was relatively... Because also, I felt like not a lot also happened this episode. Like, there was some, like, again, towards the end, there was a lot of, like, reveals and stuff. But it was kind of like a... Not letdown, but... It was a bit underwhelming, I guess, this episode. Because especially also with, like, the hype that they made for the engineer and stuff, and that was not really anything. And then the Modern Family type part of the sitcom kind of went slow. I don't know. It was for me. It was the weakest episode, I think. Is there anything else? Oh, and the Nexus commercial. I almost forgot the commercial.
Yeah.
Now, this could be one of two things. It could be referencing, I'm pretty sure it was Age of Ultron. There was like a Nexus computer like database thing that Tony like went to like I forget what he did. I saw it on Twitter earlier. So it could be that, or in the comics, the Nexus is the like point where all the different multiverses converge, and the commercial talks about like take this and you'll have a brand new reality or whatever the line was. So could maybe in the last episode it be revealed that either Wanda herself is, or Westview has become like the Nexus, and there will be like the gate to sort of all the different multiverses and stuff. I don't know. I'm still a bit up in the air about that.
I think the first thing I thought when I heard Nexus was just the Hex. I think that's what the Hex is actually going to end up being called, the Nexus. And when you step into the Hex, you have a whole new reality.
Okay, that's not a bad call either.
I don't think it was like, I don't think it was like anything like super special.
Okay.
Yours is definitely more interesting.
Sure. Now we move on to episode 8, the most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've been going for kind of long, but I promise I will cut the earlier stuff down so we have plenty of time to talk about this episode / the rest of what we think that is going to happen later on.
Yeah, because this is probably like the second biggest exposition drop since episode 4.
Yeah, so this is another exposition / kind of a flashback episode. Yep. It's not like literal flashbacks, but it's more so like looking at memories and stuff leading up to this. So while the last exposition episode was leading up to the discovery of this place that Wanda created, this is leading up to the creation of this place that Wanda created. We open up with an actual flashback this time of Salem, Massachusetts, 1693. It's a witch trial for Agatha, except it's done by other witches who are putting her on trial for betraying their coven and practicing the darkest magic possible. Her mother is also like the head of this place. I think they were sucking her of her magic at this place, although I don't know, maybe they're just shooting magic at her. But what ends up happening is that she kind of reverses it, and Agatha sucks the magic out of all of these other witches and kills them, basically. Sucks them dry. Then she does the same to her mother. Now, back in present day, Wanda, she's inside the basement. She can't use her magic because Agatha set up like runes inside, which makes it only so Agatha can use her magic. And she has Wanda trapped, and Agatha says that she wants to like know what or who Wanda is. Like Agatha thinks that she's a witch, but Wanda doesn't know like that there's like runes on the wall, and that's why she can't use her magic. Agatha's like, that's a basic thing. Why don't you know that? You're obviously extremely powerful. You don't know the basics. What's going on? But Agatha reveals that she sensed a giant afterglow of spells from Westview, and that drew her to the town. And she is extremely impressed by what Wanda has been able to do in the town, and she wants to know her secret. Wanda doesn't have the answers. So Agatha, with some of Wanda's hair, is able to create a doorway into Wanda's past memories to try to figure out what led up to Wanda being able to achieve all of this. Yeah. And so with the kids hostage, Wanda goes along with it. So the first memory we go back to is Wanda and Pietro as kids, and their parents are with their parents in Sokovia. Their dad is selling tapes of all the sitcoms that, the show has been based on to sell money. He lets Wanda choose what they want to watch, and she puts on the Dick Van Dyke Show, not the Honeymooners. And while they're watching it, the airstrike, the Stark airstrike goes off, killing their parents, and Wanda and Pietro hide under a table when a bomb lands in their living room but doesn't go off. And Agatha theorizes that Wanda kept that bomb from going off with like magic as like a young witch. But Wanda's like, nah, it was just a defective bomb. I don't know what you're talking about. But, you know, Agatha's like, okay, we'll see. So we go to the next memory now. The next one is in the Hydra lab, where her and Pietro were experimented on by the Mind Stone. And it's revealed that every other test subject that came in contact with the Mind Stone has died. No one survived the test yet. And so when Wanda goes up to the stone, though, she almost like thrives. Like her and the stone are almost like attracted to each other. And she absorbs its energy, and in the stone, she sees a silhouette of the classic Scarlet Witch outfit. Almost like a premonition. So Agatha's like, okay, so the Infinity Stone boosted your powers. Well, I still need to see more. So we go to the next memory, which is inside the Avengers compound. It's after Pietro died. Wanda's in a new country. She's all alone, and Vision consoles her as they watch Malcolm in the Middle together. And this is where their relationship starts. And then the last memory we see is Wanda entering the Sword headquarters to recover Vision. She is shown the body that is dismantled. Hayward says that he can't let her take it, but he'll let her say goodbye. And so she goes up to the body, but she feels it and it's lifeless. And so she leaves. She does not take the body. She leaves and she goes to her car where there's an envelope in the front seat. And then we see her drive to Westview, New Jersey, which just seems like kind of a dump, honestly, but still. And she drives up to an empty plot, and she walks out to it, and she takes that envelope out, and she opens it up, and it's a deed to the property that Vision bought for them to build a house and grow old in. And at this point, she breaks. She has a mental breakdown. Her powers expand outward, and it alters the town, creates the house. It creates this whole facade. And it also creates a new Vision out of her. Like it comes out of her. So we find out that she didn't steal the body. It's a new Vision. So we end up now back to modern day with Agatha in the streets with the kids hostage, sneered at the neck. And she now knows what Wanda is. She's added up all the pieces together. She says she is a supposed myth, a being capable of spontaneous creation. She says that she uses chaos magic, which makes her the Scarlet Witch. And then we have a post-credit scene where Hayward uses one of the drones that they recovered to siphon off some of the residual energy from the Hex to power the Vision's, like the real Vision's body, which has been reconstructed into the White Vision, which Hayward's presumably going to send into the Hex to take Wanda out or something. Now, you know, if this episode fell kind of flat like the last one, I'd agree with you, where I'd be like, yeah, maybe that, you know, episode 6 was the last good episode. But I think this was the best episode.
Okay.
I love this episode.
So
and I loved it more watching it twice.
Okay. I think this episode is just okay. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch it. I only saw it the first time yesterday.
Right.
So maybe I just need a quick rewatch. I don't really have a lot of problems with this episode. It's just kind of, it feels, I don't know. Let me get into my big talking points.
Okay.
So we see Wanda kind of confused about what she did next when her and Agatha were walking through her backstory, and then because Agatha was like, and then you went to Sword, and then she's like, wait, what? And then she was like, I did go to Sword. So that kind of confused me, because I was like, well, maybe she didn't go to Sword. But then there's the security footage. One thing I did like is how Hayward clearly manipulated the footage of Vision's body not being there after Wanda apparently broke in. We see what actually happened, assuming that Agatha didn't put her mind under a trance and so we saw what actually happened there, having so now there's kind of two Visions. Assuming they send this Vision, the White Vision, into the Hex.
Oh, we're getting a Vision. We're definitely.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that. I don't want to talk into I don't want to talk into theories yet, but
right. Well, okay, let me navigate you through the episode why I think it's so good.
Go ahead.
I mean, I already told you I'm a sucker for exposition.
Right.
I'll eat that exposition up.
Yep.
So,
go ahead.
Well, first off, we start off with Agatha. Also, I think that opening scene was what that feed yo magic was. I feed off yo magic, and the kid turns into like a corpse. What did Agatha do in the opening flashback? She fed off all those other witches' magic, which turned them into corpses.
Oh.
But nonetheless, I think Agatha, I said it in the last episode, I thought it was corny. I thought she was redeemed as a character in this episode. I really liked Agatha in this episode. Which also, just a really quick mention, rewatching the whole series back, I really loved Agnes as like the side character while she's like playing like kind of like the dummy, I guess, the dumb kind of neighbor. I think a lot of her lines are so funny throughout the show. But with that being said, yeah, so this episode, I just really enjoy getting more information. And so we go back to we see them watching the sitcoms in the first memory, or we get kind of the glimpse of why she made this reality based on sitcoms, because that's what they would do. They had like a TV night with their parents. Yep. They had all the different types of sitcoms that the show was based on. And when she's watching like the Dick Van Dyke Show, and you see like Sokovia, we see outside, it's like it's living hell, that place. There's war raging outside. It's in extreme poverty. And Wanda sees this ideal life of, the characters in the Dick Van Dyke Show. And I forget what the actress's name in the Dick Van Dyke Show, but it shows a lot of shots of her. And, it's just of a small girl fantasizing about, what the perfect life would be like. And it gives so much more credence, or I guess power, to the earlier episodes, like episode 1 and 2, where it's strictly set in like the sitcom, I guess 3 too also, but in like the 60s and 50s sitcoms. And you see how much like those sitcoms meant to her as like a little kid. It was like, a lot of times we talk about movies being an escape, and that's what those sitcoms were for her. They were literally an escape. And then, the bomb goes off, and we get like the soft retcon also throughout, of where it turns out that Wanda's actually did not just get her powers from the Mind Stone. They kind of soft retcon to where, no, she actually was, just a witch. And, it just enhanced her powers, which I say soft retcon kind of lightly, because people said, oh, this is a retcon episode. I think it fits. I think it works totally fine and perfectly. The fact that she's a witch, and she just didn't know about it. It doesn't feel like it's forced. So then we move on. So my friend Mia was like, I cried during that first scene. I didn't cry in any of these, but there were later ones that I got kind of close. So then we get to...
I was never close to crying. Sorry, I was never close to crying.
Well, I got choked up later on. But then we go to the Hydra memory. And like there was just something so powerful about that silhouette of the Scarlet Witch, in the Mind Stone. And it almost gave me sort of like Dark Phoenix impressions, which was it's like an X-Men character. But because what I was saying when we opened up the episode, why I wasn't super excited about this show was because Wanda and Vision were kind of supplementary characters. They still did some important stuff with them, especially like in Infinity War, but there wasn't a whole lot behind them. But this episode especially fleshed out Wanda so much, and seeing the history. And so I thought that was really powerful, the Mind Stone scene. And then, see, I'm up in the air. When I first watched this episode, my favorite scene was the flashback in the Avengers headquarters. That was my favorite scene when I first watched it, because when Vision consoles her, and we see like the beginning of their relationship, I don't know, there were certain parts that were just so beautiful. And the one line that really got me was when Vision says, what is grief if not love persevering? And I was like, oh my God, writers. Oh my God. You guys are hitting me in the feels. And like you see You know, Wanda's no longer alone at that point. This episode especially, it doesn't just flesh out Wanda, it fleshes out the Wanda and Vision relationship, and it makes me, like, again, really excited to go back and rewatch the other stuff that they were in. So that was my favorite scene, but then I think rewatching it the second time, the sword parts I think was my favorite, because like I knew Elizabeth Olsen was a good actress, but she is so good, like in the sword based part where she breaks in or whatever, or goes in, and when she says goodbye to Vision, when she goes down and she feels him, and she puts her hand over his head and she does the like I can't feel you line, which in Infinity War that was kind of a line that was between the two of them, you know, back when they were on the run, when Vision was like having problems with the Mind Stone, she like tried to feel it and she's like, all I feel is you. And then when Wanda has to kill Vision and she doesn't want to do it, and Vision's like, it's okay, and he tells her, he's like, you can't hurt me, all I feel is you. And now this one where she can't feel him, like all three of those lines together, I think it's so beautiful. I think it's so beautifully done. Oh wait, no, I lied. That's not my favorite part. My favorite part, hands down, was when she drives to Westview. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, what's going on? You know, there's the envelope in the car. Is it like somebody telling her to like meet them at this location? Is it somebody like luring her into Westview?
Yep.
And then she gets to the property with like the plot of land, or like the foundation of the house. There's nothing built up. And she gets up there and I'm like, oh, what's this letter going to be? And then she opens it up and it's the deed to the house that Vision bought them to grow old in. My heart broke. That was like the closest I was to crying. And just the way that that both in the sword room when like she says goodbye and when she breaks down there, the way that Elizabeth Olsen plays that part, she's so powerful, and like the emotion feels so real. And just when she breaks, I was like, oh my god. Should we move into theories now? Is there anything else you want to talk about that episode? Because I think I kind of have something that I kind of want to, that kind of leads into.
Let's get into theories.
Because for a while I was like, this show's gonna end up bad, and it still might. You know, I was like, everything is gonna be ripped away from Wanda again, and she's gonna break, and she's gonna be like the villain in Doctor Strange, or a, you know, villainous kind of force or a problem in Doctor Strange. Yeah. And she's gonna cause everything to break. And while I think it's still a possibility, after watching this episode, I don't know if I want to see her break a second time. Watching her break the first time was like powerful enough. If Vision dies and the kids get ripped away from her and everything again just gets ripped away from her one more time, and she really breaks and maybe, you know, breaks like the multiverse or whatever. Oh my god, I can't, after seeing how powerful this one was, I don't know how it will be, you know, in the next one. Especially if she has to kill Vision. No, people made jokes where it's like, you know, she might have to kill Vision a third time. She might have to kill Vision 4 times because there's 2 Visions. Oh my goodness.
It's true.
I don't know what's gonna happen in the last episode. I have theories, but none of them I'm favoring. You know, with Game of Thrones, I even though my thought didn't actually happen, but I thought I kind of knew how it was gonna end. With this, I have ideas, but I really have I can't tell you how it's going to end.
Okay. My biggest theory is the new Vision, like the white Vision, is going to enter the Hex, and they're going to have a square off. Do you remember that part in Age of Ultron where our Vision holds Ultron's head and shuts him out from like all this information source?
Yeah, no, yeah.
I think what's going to happen is a very similar scene to that. This Vision, our Red Vision.
Okay.
Red Vision is going to latch himself onto White Vision, and I think what's going to happen is he's going to try to like transplant his mind. So we'll actually be able to get a Vision with some of his memories back in the MCU. And I think that's the way they're going to do it.
Right, yeah. Again, I was talking to my friend Mia about this last night, and that's what she was saying too. And last night, I was honestly saying, like, I don't think that's going to happen because the Vision, the Red Vision, even that isn't really Vision, though. You know?
Right.
He doesn't have any of Vision's original memories. He's just kind of like, I mean, I don't know how if they're gonna explain it as like he's like Wanda's memory of Vision, but he's not the real Vision. So even if you put him in that body, it wouldn't be the same. But after rewatching them and like rewatching like episode 7, where Darcy kind of recounts everything to him, maybe they will do that because he kind of knows about the past. He doesn't have necessarily the exact same memories, but he's been informed on everything. He's been told about his history. Like Darcy told him about who he was, how he became what he was, the death of him. He now knows that.
There could still be a Jarvis backup too. That's another thing from Age of Ultron. That's another thing from Age of Ultron I was thinking of. That because Ultron tried to kill Jarvis like when Ultron was like first being built, but he like backed himself up. So I think it's possible that Jarvis, or maybe even some form of Vision's memory, has a backup that you could give. Or maybe, you know what, White Vision could be Vision. Maybe he has the memories.
There's a chance of that.
I think, I just think, no matter what way we come out of this, I think we're getting a Vision.
So do you think we're going to end this with a somewhat happy ending? Like, do you think that Vision's going to... Do you think the kids are going to make it out of it?
No. I think Agatha has the kids. Like, Agatha maybe made the kids. Maybe they're, like, visions or something. But I don't think the kids are real. Because there's no other kids in the town. See,
we mentioned that we did a podcast before about this.
Yep.
And I said that that's what I thought. I thought that maybe Agatha is controlling the kids, and that's just another way for nudging Wanda into doing whatever she wants.
Mm-hmm.
But after we saw Wanda create Vision out of nothing, I think it's possible that the kids could be created out of nothing. Now, as of right now, though, Vision, in his current state, at least we believe this, he can't live outside the Hex, though.
Right.
So if he goes into the new body, maybe he can live outside the Hex, but the kids can't.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
One thing that popped into my mind, and this relates to the kids. I didn't rewatch episode 7. Mm-hmm. But you said something about the milk jug. How the milk jug was like reverting back in time.
Right.
There was a missing kid. There was a missing kids alert on that milk jug.
Right.
I don't know if there was like a clear enough picture, but I think it could possibly be one of the twins. Or maybe because they're twins. I don't know. Maybe it's like both of them in one, and she like split them apart. Something like that. I think it's a possibility. Probably just like a very faint one, though.
Yeah, I don't think the kids are pre-existent. I don't think she took other people's kids and made them into her own.
Mm-hmm.
I think the kids are either, kind of similar to the Vision projection, or something. But I don't think the kids are other talent, because they even say it in one of the episodes where Jimmy's like, we don't have any idea on the kids, compared to like how they have everybody else in the town. Like there isn't any existing thing on the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know that. I mean, that could be a thing. I think the missing kids thing might just be the fact that there used to be missing kids on milk cartons, and it was just a aesthetic thing. An image came out for Spider-Man, like a set photo, where there was a big bulletin board with a bunch of missing kids posters on them. So it could be a connection to that, perhaps.
Oh, okay.
Or, I mean, I don't think they're going to touch on this. I think this was just sort of a gateway to get us to Westview in the first place. But there was a missing persons case originally. That was the reason why Jimmy went to Westview. Now, I don't think...
That's true.
With only one episode left, I don't think they're going to really touch on it. But that could be a thing, too.
Do you buy that there's actually only one episode left?
Ooh, I've seen other people say that, where they think there's a fake episode.
Mm-hmm.
Or a secret episode, I should say. I think there is only one episode left.
You think so?
Because
we know know that there's like a behind the scenes coming out.
Yeah.
The week after.
Yeah.
I think I think we're gonna get, to me, because I don't know how you can do a fight. Okay, assuming there is going to be a fight scene. I'm assuming that because there was actually a leaked screenshot of episode 9 that showed WandaVision and the 2 kids like in fighting poses.
Right. So
I think that you're going to have like a big fight episode, and then next episode, if there is a next episode, which I'm going to say there is. I might be wrong, but I'm going to say there is. That's going to be like your end of the story lead into Doctor Strange.
It could be. There could be a secret episode. I think if anything, this next episode is just going to be really long.
Well, this one, episode 8 was longer. Anyways.
Yeah, but I think this one's going to be like maybe around an hour. It might not be, but they could. But I think the only reason why I'm thinking maybe they don't is because they've done behind the scenes stuff before. They did it every single time with the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Season. They're doing it with Bucky. They're even doing it with when Black Widow supposedly comes out on Disney Plus, unless it gets pushed back again. They're doing a behind the scenes, I believe, of the movie too on Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. And so there's the last episode next week. There's the behind the scenes, and then the next week is the start of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's time in there. I mean, I guess they could just randomly drop it, but I don't know if there's time in there for it.
I think it'll just come out the same day as the behind the scenes.
Right. You know, you could be right.
That's my thought process. Because you got episode 1 and 2, the first.
Right, that's
true
too. There is still, supposedly at least, a big cameo left in the show.
I have not heard of this.
Oh, I'm surprised. I made the rounds on Twitter very early.
Okay.
Well, since you don't know much about the Mandalorian, you said you don't want to know anything about it. I'll just say that there is a big cameo in the Mandalorian, and so during an interview, somebody said, "Hey, you know."
Oh, I know the Mandalorian cameo.
Okay.
I know it's the CG person, right?
Well, yes. Do you want me to?
Well, it's a real person, but they.
Do you know
CG'd.
who it is, though?
Yes.
Okay. So, anyways, there was They asked if there's a Luke Skywalker-sized cameo in the show.
Spoilers for like Mandalorian, by the way.
Well, it's been out for a little bit, but. But they asked Elizabeth Olsen that, and she said, granted, she didn't just randomly come out and say there is. She was asked the question, but she said, yes, there is. Now, is it actually a Luke Skywalker-sized cameo? I don't know. But then Paul Bettany also kind of doubled down and said that there's an actor that he's super excited to work with that he's never gotten to work with before. And he said it also is not Evan Peters, because that kind of came out before the Evan Peters thing, but then he clarified later on that it's not Evan Peters. Now, some people actually are saying that Paul Bettany's pulling our leg, and the actor is actually himself that he never got to work with, because he's going to be Vision versus Vision. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case, though.
No, I don't think so either.
I'm going to list off a couple of different things, and let me know what you think is like the likelihood of this.
Okay.
Or if you could see it happening. One is it's Agatha's/Agnes's husband, Ralph, who gets mentioned a bunch in the show, but we never see, and he shows up in some kind of role, and he's played by a big actor. No, you don't see it happening?
No, I don't see that. No.
Okay. Next is it's revealed that there's a bigger kind of villain behind it all. That Agnes or Agatha isn't the big bad. There's somebody else. So either like a Mephisto, who's like a demon devil type sorcerer, kind of like a Dormammu from Doctor Strange type person, or Nightmares, a couple of different ones, and so Mephisto's modeled after the devil, and people actually are theorizing this could be a thing. Al Pacino, I don't know how recent it was, but he said that he really enjoys what they're doing with the MCU. Now, if you hear Al Pacino really likes what you're doing, do you not go get him, who has played the devil before, to play the devil in your show? What's a bigger name to play the devil in your thing than Al Pacino? Could you see Al Pacino showing up in this last episode?
Absolutely not. You can get a million other people other than Al Pacino. I don't think it's going to be the devil.
Do you think there's going to be... Well, he's not actually the... Mephisto is the character who people are theorizing.
Right.
Now, do you think there is a higher evil? With only one... Well, you said there might be two, but with technically one episode listed left, do you think there's enough time to reveal somebody above Agatha?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I have an idea of who it's going to be. Although it's probably although it's probably going to be the easiest idea.
Well, let me. Oh, it's not Doctor Strange either. If that was your thought, it's not Doctor Strange.
We know that for a fact.
They said it's like they were like it. The person that we're talking about is not Doctor Strange. They said, or Paul Bettany said it. I'm pretty sure.
Well, there goes that, because I was like Vision and
when you said
Vision and
obvious,
Doctor
that's
Strange.
when I was like, yeah, okay.
Vision and Doctor Strange have never interacted.
Right.
So that's what my thought was.
Well, I think Paul Bettany probably did some kind of weird, avant-garde play with a fellow British actor like Benedict Cumberbatch. Wouldn't surprise me if he has worked with Benedict Cumberbatch before. Okay, what if the cameo is actually the engineer shows up? And who knows, maybe it's John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, maybe it's some other character, like, I don't know, who's Hank Pym, maybe, even though he isn't an aerospace engineer. Mm-hmm. But some other, could you see it being the engineer showing up in this last episode?
No, because I don't think I have the same thought process with you. I think the person they showed in episode 7 was the engineer.
Okay.
Because Monica seemed to recognize her, they were all buddy, so right. That's I don't think there's a hidden meaning behind that.
Okay. Now I heard this one, and I thought, but you said you don't think there's another person behind anything. But what if Baron Mordo from Doctor Strange 1 shows up? You know he's going to be in Doctor Strange 2. His whole thing at the end of Doctor Strange 1 is no more sorcerers. He wants to get rid of magic users. Mm-hmm. What if he's actually the big bad behind all of this? And he shows up. Chiwetel Ejiofor. Oscar nominated, maybe even winning actor. I forget if he won for 12 Years a Slave or not.
I don't know. Possibly. That one sounds more likely than anything else. If we know he's in Doctor Strange 2 and we know it's not Doctor Strange.
Okay.
I don't really know.
The last one I got written down. The last one I got written down is there's some kind of Spider-Man character that shows up. Probably from, another universe is what I mean by that. Not Tom Holland showing up, but I mean somebody from the Spider-Man movie showing up.
Not happening.
Okay.
I don't think that's happening because I think Sony and Marvel's deal is kind of super ironclad. I think there has to be a Spider-Man movie first before Spider-Man shows up in anything. And they only have a very limited number of Spidey appearances throughout the MCU now. I think they have 4 with the new deal they signed.
Right.
Plus, if we're assuming this show was I'm assuming it started around the same time that filming anyways around the same time from Far From Home. Far From Home came out, and then there was that news that they're not going to be in the MCU anymore. They're going their own way. So
right,
I don't.
There's the disagreement between.
Yeah, I don't think that. Personally, I don't think that's going to happen.
That's what I got. I really have no idea who the cameo is going to be. I think it's probably. I think there's a chance it's maybe a Mephisto or a Nightmare, and they have a big actor playing that. I don't know if it's going to be Al Pacino, but they do have some big character. Or I was listening to Paul Bettany talk about it, the actor, and with a picture of White Vision on screen, and it really does kind of sound like he could be taking the piss out of it. And when he's talking about he says it's an actor that I've always wanted to work with my whole life. We have sparks on screen, amazing chemistry together. And so part of me is maybe he is just taking the piss out of it, and it actually is just himself as the big cameo that he's
It could be. I mean, we're assuming that screenshot is right and they are about to fight. Then I think that could be. I don't know.
Cool.
I just don't know. Just don't know.
Well, did you have any more theories, or do you think that kind of covered most things?
No, I think that does kind of cover most things. I don't think we're gonna get any lead-in into Winter Soldier. I don't think we're gonna get any lead-in into. I can't even remember the name of it.
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier. I don't think we're gonna get any lead into that. I think it's gonna be its completely own thing.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
We might get some. Maybe it is Doctor Strange. Maybe he was just lying. I don't know. But
do you think that the multiverse stuff will happen in Doctor Strange and they won't have any of that stuff in the last episode? Or do you think in the last episode they're gonna like have, you know, the multiverse kind of open up at all?
Assuming Evan Peters, like, because there was that quick cameo,
right?
Not the cameo. There was that post-credit scene at the end of episode 7 with him like coming up to Monica. Assuming that is like X-Men Quicksilver, then I think there's a good chance. Okay. But it could be like what I said. It could just be like a multiverse, but like still the MCU, just played by a different person.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, well, with wrapping things up, I'm very excited for the last episode coming out next week. You know, this show has exceeded my expectations, and what I think I really love about the show is the fact that we have gotten 8 episodes in. We only have 1 episode left, although you said there might be 2, but
maybe.
But we're 8 episodes in. We're the majority of the way through, and there has not been a big action sequence yet. This show has been primarily all story, and I think it proves many of the Marvel naysayers wrong. Perhaps, you know, Martin Scorsese, who thinks the Marvel movies are just a bunch of explosions and stuff. I think, and I personally thought that Marvel told great stories, you know, anyways, like with the big action. Mm-hmm. But this just proves that they can tell super compelling stories that keep people on the edge of their seat with no action whatsoever. And I think it's a feat. I think it makes me even more excited for the follow-up Disney shows, you know, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, like Loki. They have a bunch of other ones confirmed too that are coming up, but those are the ones that are actually, you know, pretty much all done with production and are coming out this year.
Yeah, I think no matter what happens, I think the future of the MCU is gonna stay relatively interesting. Because personally, I thought like after Endgame, there was like no going up from here, and even like with Far From Home, it was kind of like it was a solo film, you know, with just Spider-Man, but like. That was kind of like a step back, a huge step back from Endgame. That was a much simpler story. If all this multiverse stuff is to like be believed, if we are getting like a bunch of Spider-Men back in the MCU, then I think it's going to be interesting to see where things go from here.
Agreed. And with that being said, Joaquin, where can people find you?
Find me at 12 Star. Just Google it. You'll find me. I'll talk to you.
Cool. I'm at Cap
66.
Yep, I'm still Cap 66.
Crazy.
The podcast is at Cast Potato on Twitter. If you're listening to this, you know it's on YouTube. Hit us subscribe. Hit us with a like. We love to see it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, thanks for joining in. Probably when we talk about the last episode, it will just be us talking about the last episode. No having to go over every single episode in it.
Right.
This was kind of our WandaVision, you know, just information dump this episode. And now it'll be very interesting. So, with that being said, have a good night, everyone.
Later.